So we have two services today. There's this morning and there's this evening. So I wonder if I could just give you a short attention test. I'm going to compare the results in the two services. So if you don't mind, we're just going to watch a short video before we start.
An awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
I'm sorry, it was a little unclear, it's hard to see, but there's a person in a bear suit that walks right through the middle of that scene. And a few weeks ago, Chris Russell preached, and he started by talking about how different we all are. We come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, we have different family histories, different passions, different expertise, different knowledge. But one thing we all have in common, Chris said. He said, we all need help. And I really love that. I love that vulnerability. But I would like to venture that there's another thing that we all share, we all have in common, and that is we all have blind spots. We don't all see it all. We don't know everything. We see some things clearly and some things more dimly. Sometimes, though, we even miss the perfectly obvious. It's easy to miss something you're not looking for. And we have idioms for these things, right? Like can't see the wood for the trees, or can't see past one's nose on one's face. To see is to understand, to perceive, to have a perspective. To see clearly is to understand something in some depth. And today we're going to spend some time looking at the healing of the blind men at Bethsaida by Jesus. And we're going to look closely at the surrounding verses and what is happening in that scene. Mark is one of the four Gospels, the four books all about Jesus and getting into his life. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time in chapter 8, where this story appears. And it's really about Jesus telling his followers, his disciples, the people closest to him, what he's really up to, what he's planning. And we have Easter, and we're celebrating a lot of things in the coming weeks. But this comes before all that, when he starts to reveal himself to his disciples. And it's a bold invitation to come and walk with him. But spoiler alert, the disciples don't get it. A little bit about the book of Mark. It absolutely explodes out of the gate. I don't know if you've read it recently, but it's a little bit like when you watch a movie or a TV show. You usually have a little clip right before the credits, and a little bit of action to bring you in. Mark is kind of like that for 8 chapters. So first, John the Baptist shows up. He's making a scene. Then Jesus arrives. He asks or tells a few people to join him. They follow him. They start going around the countryside. They're healing. Jesus is healing all kinds of people in all kinds of ways. He's spitting parables. He's unpacking scripture. He's walking on water. He's gathering crowds. Then he's feeding those crowds. First 5,000, then 4,000. It's all happening. And it's boom, boom, boom. And not everyone is thrilled about it. The religious leaders, the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, he's really getting under their skin, and they're after him constantly. And where we're going to meet this story is the Pharisees have been challenging Jesus and pushing him a little bit, and what he does is gets in the boat with his followers and starts to go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. He's had enough of that conversation. So that's where we are today. So Mark chapter 8, 14. And we're going to be in Mark 8 for the next 20, 25 minutes, so if you do have a Bible, feel free to hang out there. So, they're in the boat, and they're going to the north side of the Sea of Galilee. The disciples had forgotten to bring bread, except for one loaf they had with them in the boat. Be careful, Jesus warned them. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. What he's saying is watch out for the bad ideas that embed in the loaf, in the bread, and change things from within. And they discussed this with one another, and they said, is it because we have no bread? One thing I love about the Gospels, just a quick aside, is the disciples they don't come across that great for most of the time. There's such an honest kind of vulnerability to it that I just absolutely love. They're not that quick on the uptake, and I just love how Mark kind of portrays that. Anyway, aware of their discussion, it's a boat. It's not that big. So they're talking. Jesus is right there. And Jesus asked them, why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see and ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000? How many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? 12, they replied. And when I broke the 7 loaves of the 4,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? They answered, 7. Do you still not understand? He said to them. So at this point, many people were waiting for the Messiah. They were waiting for the one that the prophets had foretold, a king that would come and rescue his people from tyranny. He would free the captives, usher in a new era. But when he actually showed up, he wasn't exactly what they were looking for. It wasn't immediately clear. This man, Jesus, he was healing, feeding, serving. And it's slowly dawning on the disciples, even in this moment, that this actually might be the thing that they were waiting for, just not exactly what they were hoping for. And I am giving the disciples a hard time, but that is because I see myself in them as well. We have to be patient with them because it just wasn't what they expected. It just wasn't what they were looking for. They expected a king that would overthrow oppression, that would clean the slate, that would become a ruler, and there would be an uprising, power and strength and revolution. But this man is so gentle, so relational. He's feeding people, using a little to provide a lot. And not only that, and this is what this passage that we just read is really about, he's involving the disciples in that. He's showing them that they're the ones distributing the food. They're the ones engaging in this with him. He's starting it off, they're carrying it on, and there's an abundance left over afterwards. He's helping them understand they're in it with him, which is an extraordinary thing. Whereas the Pharisees and the King Herod, Jesus wants them to see that they're full of bad ideas. They're strong and strict, powerful and petty. The Pharisees were looking for crystal clear rules that would define the innermost circle. What you believe, what you do, and where you're from defines whether you're in or you're out. King Herod, he wanted to overthrow the Roman and foreign oppression, which is great, but he wanted to establish his line in their stead. He wanted his family forever to be the ones who were in that position. And Jesus is saying, I'm not interested in any of that. He's painting a completely new picture. He's asking for open, humble hearts, a relationship together working with him. He's inviting us to create something completely new. So it's no wonder that the disciples can't see it. It's a new picture. And this is really the thesis of Mark's entire book. He's presenting Jesus as inviting all of us, a universal call to discipleship. And discipleship is feels like a kind of Christianese word, but it's really a relationship. And it has a few defining characteristics. We need to trust in him, trust Jesus. We need to confess that we believe. And we need to follow his conduct, his behavior, as we see in these Gospels. We need to follow his teaching and be shaped by him. And we need to be prepared to face rejection for those choices. And the first 8 chapters of Mark are just story after story after story after story of Jesus showing this new direction. And the disciples are just about there. They're just about to get it. And that's where we find ourselves now, in the healing of the blind man of Bethsaida, which is both a healing and a parable for the disciples. So let's take a look and see what happens. So they came to Bethsaida, and I think I pronounce that differently every time, so I apologize. And some people brought a blind man, and they begged Jesus to touch him. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him outside a little way from the village. And when he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" And he looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." And once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes, and his eyes were opened, and his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. And Jesus sent him home, saying, "Don't even go into the village." This is the turning point at the heart of this book of Mark, the tipping point. What is happening here? There's a lot going on in this. Let's unpack it for a little bit. So, this is a practical and wonderful healing of physical sight to show a practical and wonderful healing of spiritual sight. You see, every time Jesus heals, he does things differently. He heals from afar with a word. Someone touches his cloak, gets healed. There's lots of different ways that he does it. But this one's a little bit different because it kind of looks like it doesn't work the first time. It kind of goes in stages. And let's look at a few things. First, notice who brings the blind man is Jesus' friends. They bring him and beg Jesus to help. They see more clearly, and they know that Jesus can help him. And this is important because the friendships we have, the people closest to us, can often see what we are unable to see if we're willing to listen. You want to know your blind spots? Ask those closest to you. Second, notice that he is healed in steps, in stages. Like I said, it's almost like it doesn't work the first time, but Jesus puts his hands on him. I'm going to avoid the spit thing for now. There's not enough time, but there's an intimacy right here. There's this. He's getting right into this blind man's space, and he's saying, "Do you see anything?" Fascinating question. This isn't a one and done. This isn't immediate. This isn't an epiphany. This is a process of illumination. It's so personal. It's so one-to-one. It's so engaged. And I hope this encourages us. I know it encourages me. We don't need to rush it. We don't need to feel stuck. It's a process of healing, a process of illumination. Understanding comes in steps. There's no immediate download to get the answers to where we need to be. It's not all lightning bolts and epiphanies. And this really doesn't feel, in a way, as much about this man as it does about the disciples. There's so much of this, do you not see? Do you not understand? Do you not see? And he asked the man, do you see anything? Third, pay attention to how the man responds to this question. Do you see anything, Jesus asks. And the man says, he's really brave. He says, not really. It's not very clear. Honestly, I don't know if I would have done that. I think if I had gotten halfway there, I would be like, yep, good, we're good. It's much better than before. Thank you, Jesus. This is amazing. I'm one of those guys, if you bring the wrong food at the restaurant, I'm going to eat that anyway. It's cool. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. But not this man. He says, better, but not perfect. Clearer, but not crystal. And I think this is permission and encouragement to ask for more, to speak up about what we see. Perhaps it's only dimly, but speak up, share that. Ask God for more. Be honest, be humble. We just don't see it all. We don't see it clearly just yet. Steve Carter writes that if we really trust God, we have nothing to prove, nothing to lose, and nothing to hide. Nothing to prove, nothing to lose, nothing to hide. Are we trying to prove our worth? Are we afraid of losing something dear? Are we hiding something? Because I believe that this man and his friends, they had nothing to lose. So they were brave. And as Jesus engages face to face so intimately with this man, he speaks up and openly shares, no, I don't see it all. I have nothing to prove here. It's nothing to hide. And once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes, and his eyes were opened, and his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. I'm going to take a little aside for a minute. I'd like to show you a picture. I wonder, do you know what this is? Come on, give it to me. Very good. Okay, very good. The Beatles, very good. Yeah, good. Let's try another one. What's this? Wow, that was really quick. Yeah, very good. Okay, you got that one really quickly. One more? Let's try one more. What is this? Cool. So what am I saying? I would like to offer the suggestion that we only recognize blurry things when we've seen them before. So this man, he says, they look like trees walking. They look like trees walking. That suggests a couple things, right? It suggests that he had sight before this, that he had seen what people walking look like. And I wonder, it's a little bit of a challenge, but I wonder if there was a time when you felt that you saw more clearly than you see today. I wonder what was true at a time earlier in your life that maybe has become more dim. And I'm not just speaking about age and the degradation of our eyes, but our spiritual sight. I feel often like the blind man of Battersea. Perhaps I'm paying too much attention watching the passes to really see what's going on. And I wonder if there's some of us who need to pray for our spiritual sight to be restored back to where it was. Anyway, after this amazing incident, the group of people move on from Bethsaida up to Caesarea Philippi. Also, I'm sure I pronounced that perfectly, which is near Mount Hermon. And I don't know if you know the region very well, but I'm going to show you. So Bethsaida is up here at the top of the Sea of Galilee, and Caesarea Philippi is up there, and you can see Mount Hermon. That's the tallest mountain in the region. So imagine the scene. Jesus and his followers, they're walking up away from the lake, out of the valley, into the hills. So they're looking back out across the Sea of Galilee and across the countryside and up towards the mountain, which, depending on the time of year, might be bathed in white. And Jesus asks them the question. So Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" And they replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others one of the prophets. They see dimly." "What about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" And Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." And Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. Who do people say I am? Mark is really laying it on thick here, right? We've had the, is he talking about bread? What's going on? I don't get this. And he says, do you not understand? Then we have the healing of the blind man. And we have, do you understand? Do you see? Do you see? And now as they raise up into the hills and they look at the vista, again, do you see? Do you see? Do you see who I am? And Peter speaks up for the team, and he declares a really big thing. He says, I see you clearly. I see. You are the Messiah. And like he did with the blind man, Jesus is warning them not to tell anyone. Don't spread the word, because he knows that it's not time for the final act, as we'll be discussing in the next few weeks, for Jesus to die and to be sacrificed in our place. He doesn't want everyone to, he doesn't want to accelerate the plan at that moment. But we can float past a scene like this and kind of miss just how stunning this is. If this is the Messiah, the promised one, the one who will change everything, and he's walking with his friends and he's asking them, who do you say I am? It's so relational. It's so intimate. It's very humble. It's asking, what is our relationship? How do we relate to each other? As Mark writes this, he knows what's going to happen, right? He knows that this man, this God on earth, will sacrifice everything, will die so that we may live life to the full. He will sacrifice everything so that the world can be healed. Whoever we are, wherever we are, whatever the situation. But they don't know that yet. So Jesus tells them. Let's continue. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man himself must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Mark spent a lot of time with Peter as his attendant, as his writer. So the accounts around Peter are especially vivid. They're really alive. And there's no sugarcoating. Mark presents the weaknesses of Peter and the disciples so clearly. In fact, I kind of feel bad for them a lot of the time because Peter gets it pretty strongly here, doesn't he? You almost feel bad for the whole group. But the fact of the matter is, they're still seeing dimly. They're coming closer, but they're not seeing the whole picture. They declare some truth, but when it comes to the full realization, they're still not there. And you have to understand Peter. He's saying, wait, I just said you're the Messiah. What is this? I just said you're the Messiah, and now you're saying you're going to die? We're supposed to rise up and win. What is this? Don't you know what we've put on the line? We gave up everything for you. But Jesus isn't gathering a military force to topple the world order. He's not announcing the church leaders will be cast aside and overthrown. And he's not doing this so Peter and the gang can be the leaders of this special outfit. His battle plan is to lose, to be killed. And this is a challenge to all the ways that we see power and glory and leadership. And we are so blind still today on this topic. Not putting yourself on a pedestal, but washing feet. Not being served, but serving. Not crushing the weak and destroying opposition, but entering the danger, showing mercy. Not saying you're the greatest and the most amazing, but being open and honest. Not bullying the weak or demanding thanks, but showing true grace and going the extra mile for others. Andy Stanley says it this way: followers of the Jesus way are not in it to win it. Jesus just did not align himself with the powerful and the rich and the religious. He was passionately and fervently and sacrificially in it for the weak, and in it for the hungry, and in it for the sick, and in it for the desperate, the needy. And not only that, but he's inviting his followers into that same mode. This is how we will change the world, he's saying. Let's continue. Then he called the crowd to him along with the disciples. Remember where they are. They're walking up into the hills. And he said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels." Listen. Like yeast in bread, changing us from within, Jesus says, don't be fooled by the self-centeredness and self-reliance of the religious and the powerful. The closer we are to Jesus, the clearer we see who he is and how he sees us. The closer to him we are, the clearer we see his fruit. More love, more joy, real peace, true patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, perseverance, gentleness, self-control. These are the marks of a relationship with Jesus. And like the blind man, Jesus meets us where we are, wherever that is. As dimly as I now see, Jesus enters my space and draws us in. If I can be open enough to say, I don't see enough, he is there to help us to see more clearly. In the blind man, we see the disciples' journey, as Tom Wright said it, from non-understanding to misunderstanding, and then further on into seeing the full glory of the resurrection. It's not until that moment that the penny really drops. And spoiler alert on Peter, lots of bad times coming before then. Like the blind man's friends, I also want to encourage us to be accepted in community, begging on one another's behalf. If I'm not strong enough, I pray that those around me would be strong enough to say, "You do not see." Never alone, always advocating and pursuing and fighting for one another. And like walking up into the hills with his friends, Jesus invites us further up and further in. See more clearly, he says. Who do you say I am? Keep your eyes up and open, walk with me. And yes, it might be the hardest walk we ever go on, but it is an invitation into the danger, into the openness of a real walk of hope, an abundant life, of seeing more clearly who he is and who we are in him. Let's pray. Lord, I want to thank you for your word in our own language, that we can really dive deep and understand exactly who you are and who you were showing those closest to you, exactly what it was that you were here to do. And Lord, I pray, even as we see sometimes only dimly, or we are distracted and looking in the wrong direction, Lord, I pray that you would help us to see more clearly. We ask you for more sight. Draw close to us, not only today, but through this Easter season, as we remember exactly who you are and what you did for us. In all these things, in your name, amen.